Welcome back to Arc Tutorials. A lot of you have written to me asking me to create a tutorial on Git which will help you learn, master Git end to end. Srini, Megha, Shushmita, thank you so much for writing and requesting this tutorial. So here we are. In this episode, I am going to cover everything that you need from scratch to advanced. When working on a real-time enterprise project, big or small, you will be working with some kind of a Git tool. What is Git? Git is a source code repository management. There are different tools that are often used in companies and enterprises like Bitbucket, GitHub, or it can be Subversion, etc. Whatever top 15 commands that I'm going to show you today are the ones that are applicable to all those tools and systems. Which means after today's episode, you will be mastering Git end to end. Without wasting any time, we will get started. Today I'm not going to cover any theory. In fact, we will do lots of practical examples with Git. These are the top 15 commands that you will need. If anybody tells you otherwise, don't get confused, don't get complicated in your mind. It's simple, straightforward. Like I said, after this tutorial, you'll be able to learn and master Git end to end. Alright, that's the context of today's episode, and these are the top 15 commands that I will show you different variations, use cases, etc. The tool that we will use for learning is GitHub. It's free of cost. You can go there, create your own repositories. You can see I have Arc Tutorials repositories that you can easily clone and get access. For today's purpose, I'm going to go ahead and create a new repo, and let's call it Learning Git and Arc Tutorials Git Complete Guide. Create the repository. Alright, so assuming that you already have a repository, if you don't have one, we just created one. So either way, the starting point is to have a repository. Once you have it, then you will navigate, copy this code. This is the URL of the Git. That means this is where your project is hosted. There are two ways that you can get that code base. One is through HTTPS, one is through SSH. If you're working for any banking client, insurance, which have data critical, they will probably give you a SSH kind of an access. But for most projects that even enterprises will provide you with HTTPS. Okay, so what you need to do is copy this URL. Remember, the URL will end with .git. Okay, that's how you should know that this is the URL you'll work with. So copy this URL, then go to our Visual Studio Code. I don't have anything, it's from scratch, so I'm going to create a new folder. Alright, and then I'm going to open a terminal. I'm opening a terminal inside Visual Studio Code editor. If you are using any other editor like say IntelliJ or Sublime, etc., you can find the terminal in their respective editor. Alternatively, you can also get git bash or scm. Okay, so that is something that you can use as well, but I am using an integrated terminal. So the first thing that you will do is the first command that you will learn now, which is git clone. Okay, now what it does is that you will clone the entire repository. Okay, sorry, clone the entire repository. This is what this command does. Okay, so we are going to run that command right now. We'll write git clone and we will paste that URL. Okay, now git clone the URL. Now if you're working in enterprise and you already have a URL for that particular repo, you will type that repo, but for now, if you want to learn, just copy and follow what I'm doing. Hit enter and it will tell you cloning into learning git. Okay, so it would have cloned and then you see you have the folder, empty folder, because we don't have the code yet. Okay, so that's what we are at. All right, let me open something. Clone the repository. That's the first command that we just learned. The next what we'll do is you can also do git init. Okay, So that's nothing but it's reinitializing the existing repo, or you can even do it at the start. That way you initialize the repo. Okay, so that's another thing that you would do, and you would do these only once. Okay, we will do this only once in a project, because once you have initialized, the local repo is working fine. I don't know why that's colorful is coming. Yeah, this is better. Alright, so those are the two initial commands that you will learn, which is one is git clone, one is git init. Okay, you can run git init first and then run git clone. That's also fine. Let me try and save this first. Git.txt. Okay, I don't know why the colors are still coming. It's thinking it's a JS. Okay, so I'm going to save it inside the git folder. Just give me one quick second. If it looks good, it will work well, right? So okay. Dot text. Okay, perfect. All right, so now we have the git.txt and we are working on it, and this is our folder that we are working. So we got the git init, we got the git clone. So we know what these two commands do now. Git init will initialize the repo. We only do it once. Git clone will clone the repository. All right, so once we know that, I'm going to create a file in this, and I'm going to call it index.html. You can add some dummy HTML, and then nothing crazy, nothing, just you can add any simple text file also. That's also fine, whatever you feel comfortable. Commit the changes. All right. So if you look at this repo right now, we have one, this is the name of the repo. If you see this drop down, you would see branches. Okay, now what are branches? Branches are nothing but, for each environment we will have certain code base dedicated. Okay, now you can say dedicated code base for certain. Branch is nothing but, think of a category or a aspect. Like you can have a dev branch which is for development, you can have a QA for QA, you can have UAT, and then you can have prod. Okay, so branches are nothing but you organize the code and where the code will be pushed. Remember that all of these git repos will have either a main or a master branch. Okay, any one. Okay, that's the primary code base. Okay, think of it that way, either a main or a master. In some projects they'll call it masters, and some projects they'll call it main. Whichever they call, think that that's the most primary branches. Dev, QA, UAT, prod will be created out of the main. Okay, so that was context about the branches. Right now in our application we have only one branch, which is the main branch. It has only one file which I just created, which is index.html. Alright, so the next command that you will learn now is to do git status. Okay, so it says you are on main branch, there is no commits yet, nothing to commit, no files. Okay, so remember, git status will give you status, show the status of the local working directory. Okay, if any files were changed, added, modified, etc. Okay, and you will run this command multiple times while you're working. It's a day in a project so that you can keep track of what is the current status of your local working directory. Okay, now this is the third one. I'll keep running this particular command now multiple times, so make sure that you also start learning, get used to it. The next important thing that you will learn is git pull. Now what git pull does is pull the latest code slash data from the repository. Okay, git pull means in a project when multiple people are working, they'll be pushing code to the repository. So what we do when we do git pull is pull the data whatever is currently available. Now if you look at the current scenario that we have, I created a file, right, index.html, but I don't have it in my local because I did not run the git pull. So I'm going to run git pull. And now if you notice, I have got the changes. Index.html is here, which means you will run git pull multiple times a day to multiple times a day in a project. This will help in keeping your working directory up to date. Directory up to date. Up to date. Okay. Now there will be some merge conflicts, etc. I'm going to cover that later. For now, stay with me. Understand that when we run git pull, it will pull the latest information, latest data. And what do I mean by latest details also? It's if I go ahead and create a new branch. I'm creating a new branch and I'm calling it development. And the source for this branch is our main branch. That's what I told you, either master or main. So now we have two branches. One is main, one is development. Go back to the repository and now you should see two branches here, main and development. In your projects you can have either, some people will call it dev, some will call it working, some will call it QA, UAT, etc, etc. Can be any name. Remember that there will be multiple branches when you're working on a real-time project. Now let me again do git pull. Right now when I do git branch, it only shows me one. So the next command that you're learning now is git branch. Now what it does will list all the branches that are available, that are in the repository. So if you want to see what all branches are there in your particular repo, you will type git branch. And here you see that I have only one branch listed, but I have created one more, which is development. So what is the command that we have to run? That's right, git pull, because you need to get the latest data from that repo. So type git pull. So now you see it says a new branch was added and it pulled it development slash origin. So now when you type git space branch, you are seeing only one, but let's see, git pull again. It's up to date, git branch, and it's not showing the dev, but we'll figure it out. Okay, don't worry about that. Alright, so git branch will list all the branches that are available that you can use. Okay, now let's open it here. And the next thing that I want to show you is, let's say you are creating a new file. Now let me go ahead and create a file and call it styles.css. So I created a file, new file, that's why it's in green color. Now if I run git status, it tells me that there is one file which is untracked and uncommitted, which is styles.css. So let me add some code in it. Okay, now I added a simple code. Now like I said, you will run git status multiple times. Now it tells you that there is one file which is untracked. So you will, the next command that you will learn is git add. Okay, and then you'll follow it with a file name that you want to add. So the command is git space add followed by the name of the file that we want to add or push to the repo. So we will write git add styles.css. That's the file I want to add. I added it. Then what the next thing you will do is git commit -m with a message. So what commit does, when you create a local file and add it, it adds to your local working directory. Now you are committing that change. Okay, now I'm saying added the file styles, hit enter. Okay, so now you committed the file. Okay, now what you will do next is, if you go to your repo and refresh, you will not see anything here because you just added and you just committed it. You did not push it. So the next command you will do is push. This is a command which will push the latest code from your local to the repo. Okay, so remember that. Alright, so git push will actually send your code from your local to the repo. So you will type git push. So now it says done, compressed, writing objects, total done. So now when you go and refresh your repo, you will see styles.scss added with the message that I committed. And you can see the time, you can see 2 commits. This is the one I just committed, right? So the commands that you just learned and the process is to push code from your local. First you will add, then you will commit, then you will do a push. Okay, this is the order in which you will do it. Now can I add multiple files? Yes, you can add. Okay, you can add multiple files in the local working directory, but you can also add an entire folder using the command git add dot. Okay, but don't do this. Okay, do this. The reason is you want to review what code you are pushing, what files you are pushing. Okay, so if you create an entire folder and you want to push it, you don't want to add individual files one by one. You can just do git space add space dot. That means it will move the entire folder for you. But avoid doing this, okay, because like I said, all the files will be pushed. If you're not really sure if that something should be pushed or not, hold on to that. Alright, so the commands are git add, git commit, and git push. Once you have done that, you might want to see what change logs have happened, who has committed, what are the recent commits, etc. You can run the command git log. Okay, so you can see git log will show you all the details of the commits that have happened to the repository. Okay, so git log the latest data, log the latest commits from the repository. That's what git log does. Now you will need this every now and then to make sure to check if some commits were happening, when was it happened, who did it, what was the commit about, etc. That is the next command you just learned. Alright, so now I'm going to show you something else. There is something called git fetch. Okay, now what git fetch does is it will bring the local changes, but it will not add to your local repo or a local working directory. Okay, it will not apply them. Let me show you the difference, because that's where you are often asked difference between git push versus fetch. Okay, so I'm going to cover that real quick as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. Alright, so this is about us file. Okay, so what I've done, I've created a new file. Okay, so now when you refresh, you have about.html. So I'm going to do a git pull first. Okay, git pull first. Now what git pull will do, it will bring up the latest data and apply to my local working directory, which means it will be showing up here. Let's see that. Git pull, and you see here about.html is applied. Okay, that is what git pull does. It will bring the local changes, apply it to the local working directory. Now to show you the difference of git fetch, I'm going to create one more file and say contact.html is contact file and commit my changes. Alright, so now when I refresh, I see contact.html in the repo. Now when I run git fetch, it has brought the changes to my local working directory, but it did not apply. See the difference. Git pull will bring the local changes and apply them to the local working directory, whereas git fetch will bring the changes but it did not apply. That means you don't see the contact.html in the folder yet. Right, now why do we need fetch, right? So why do we need fetch, or where do we need fetch? So let's say you're working on a complex feature and you don't want to apply the changes just yet, but you want to stay up to date with your code base, right? You don't want to apply the files slash changes, but want them in your local working directory. That's when you will run fetch. Most of the times I would say use pull. That's what I use most of the time, but again it's difference about how somebody will recommend or something. I would say I purely depend on pull sometimes, but fetch is also something. If I'm in the middle of some work, I don't want the files to be applied as it is, I just use fetch. Okay, so remember that. So that's the next command we just learned, which is fetch. Get the latest commits from the repository, but do not apply in the local working directory. Okay, git pull, what we saw, will bring the latest code from the repository and apply them to the working directory. Okay, that's the difference between git pull and git fetch. The next command you will see is, let's say I'm in middle of some work. Let's say now I'm going to run git pull, so I get all the details and getting applied. So now you see contact.html is back. All right, the next command that I want you to learn is git stash. Okay, so what git stash does is, if you are in middle of some work, right, work, but you want to switch a branch or pull some latest or fix some bug immediately, something like that, you can save your changes or work using stash command. Okay, so git stash will save your work intermediary. You can apply it anytime. Okay, so let me show you that example now. I'm going to create a file and I'm going to call it scripts.js. So I just created a file and I'm just going to do a console log and say hello git. All right, so git status will show you the status again. Like I told you, you will run that command multiple times to be sure. So keep on running git status every now and then. Okay, so I run it and I see that there is scripts.js that is added new here. But let's say a friend of mine or a colleague of mine immediately pings me and says, hey, we have an urgent issue, we need to fix a defect, right? So what do? I cannot leave my work or discard my work. So I'm going to say git stash. Okay. Now you can write a message and you can say git stash push hyphen m, and I'm going to say work in progress and no local changes to save. Okay. So why it says no local changes? Because I have not made any changes to the existing file. So I'm going to add it here with, in the index I'm adding with stash, some message I'm changing, and I'm saying git stash push hyphen m work in progress. Now I can always go back. Okay, I can always go back and see the changes. I can change my branch. You can see here I have the main branch, I have the development branch. Let's say I switch to my development branch. I don't see my changes, right, the other files. So I can always switch from main, development, etc. You can also do that by, so this is how you save your work using git stash, and you will say git stash list. It will show you all the saved changes that you have done. Okay, now let's say I want to apply some changes. See here in the index.html, I don't have that with stash command, so now I'm applying this stash again back. So I'm saying git stash, I'll say pop means bring it back, and stash at the rate 0, and then apply it. So now you see it says with stash, right? Now if I want to save this work again, you can just give a git stash and push and give a message, right? So basically what you're learning now is, when you run git stash push hyphen m and your message, it will save your work. When you run git stash pop followed by the stash the index, right? It will apply your changes back to the repo, to the working directory basically. Okay, now if you want to list what all git stashes you have saved, just type git stash list. Okay, will list all the saved work. Okay, so git stash is a very important I would say command that you should learn. You should be able to change and save your work quickly, move to other branches, come back and apply the changes also. Okay, that's very powerful tool, so practice git stash very well. Okay, all right, moving on. The next command that I want you to see learn is, you saw me that I clicked here and I moved to development branch. When I click here, I move to, these are the different branches I have. I can move from main to etc. Right? So for that, the command is git checkout development. So now it says switched to branch development. Your branch is up to date with origin. So when you run the command git checkout branch name, you will be in that, you can navigate it to that particular branch. That's the command, which is git checkout branch name. Right now you can also create branches right from terminal, but I don't encourage that. You saw I told you about git branch, right? Now when you do that, it will show you the list of branches, but if you want, you can say git branch, say QA, and a new branch will be created. Okay, so you see here new branch is created, which is git branch. So when you run the command branch name, it will create new branch for you. Okay, that's the git branch. So how do you move to different branch? Git checkout QA, and you will now be in QA branch here. Okay, so that's for switching the different branches. All right, let's see what else I can think of. Okay, I showed you git log. It shows you the latest commits that are there. We talked about pull. We talked about adding. So you can also do git remove the file name. So if you have added some file, let me add a file now. Git add scripts.js. So I've added that particular script. Now I can also say git, if you added back by mistake, um, okay, git rm. Okay, the following has changes staged in the index, so that's now removed. So that's git rm. Okay, so what it does is it will remove the file from the stage. Alternatively, if you are using um, unstage, so you can use this also to unstage, and you can also use the command, or you can use the Visual Studio Code Visual Studio Code Git extension to manage the changes. Okay, so that's how you can do that, and you can also do, so the command you, so let me show you that again. I'm going to say git add scripts.js. So now you see it got added here, right? So now I'm going to remove it. So you are going to add git rm scripts.js. Okay, or you can also unstage it by saying restore. Okay, this is also fine. Okay, it did not do that, so let me try with different option here. The error, the following file has changes staged, keep rf, and or we can use hyphen cached, and it says now it is removed. Okay, so there are different options of how you can do, but I usually prefer to use it from the editor itself, but you should know the command, which is git rm cached. Okay, when you run this command, it will remove it from the staging area. All right, that's the remove command. Now what else commands are pending? Let's see the main one, which is git merge. Okay, this is one of the most important things that you will work and you will run into issues in terms of merge conflicts, etc. Okay, so I'm going to show you that right now to you. So I'm going to go back to my area and I'm going to select the branch development. All right, so now I am in development branch. I'm going to add a new file and I'm going to call it services.html. This is services file. Okay, now I am committing these changes to development branch. Okay, now to the development branch, but if you go to main you will not see the services.html. Okay, so that's where I'm going to show you how to do the merge. Okay, so first what we'll do, we'll get checkout and we are going to go to say development. Okay, now we are in development branch, you can see here, and I'm going to do a git pull, and now you have got the changes. You can see the files here, right? You got the services.html, and I'm going to say git merge main. Okay, so now you see it has, now you can enter a main message and you can say these are the things, and I'm going to save it and quit. Okay, so now if you see there was a problem. Okay, sorry. So if you see now we got the services, we got the about, we got the contact, we got the script, etc., all into this development branch. So when you go now and refresh your development branch, right, see it says recent push, but it has all the files now. Okay, now go to development branch and you will see the changes. So you merged it, so you need to create a pull request. Now what is pull request? Pull request is nothing but every time you want to merge, first you create a pull request, somebody will do a code review and then merge it. Okay, now that will be basically git commit -m and then give a commit message and say merged with main, and then you'll do git push and done. Okay, so now all your changes are in sync, okay, with the merged branch. Okay, and now let's go ahead and pull the development branch, and you can see all my changes are in the development branch, which is style, services, about, index, all of that. All right, so what are the steps? The steps are now simple. First you take the file, first you be in the branch you want to merge with. Okay, second, run the command git merge with source from where you want to merge. Okay, you will see some merge conflicts that will be coming up, so you will then need to manually resolve them by clicking and checking, and you will see if there are any merge conflicts, it will not allow you to merge it. But in most cases, if that should give you an option. Okay, let me see if I can create that option for you. um, I'm going to go to about file and edit it, some merge conflicts, and I'm committing it here. So now when I'll do git pull, okay, so I got the updated changes. Let me also push this file and see if I can, but that's I think getting too longer for this particular video. Let me know if you want me to cover those merge conflicts, how to resolve them. I'll create a separate dedicated video. I think for today's episode I have covered all these commands that are mostly required. Let's see the list and review them again. First is the git init, that is used to initialize. The second is git clone, to clone the repository. Then you have the git status, which you will run multiple times in your working directory in order to make sure that you see the status of the current files. Then you have the git pull, which is to pull the latest data from the repository. You can run this multiple times to stay up to date. Then we saw git branch, which is to list all the branches that are available in your repository. To create a new branch, you will run the command git branch space branch name. Then you have the git add, you will add the files to the working local directory. You will commit them That's the next step, which is git commit, and then you will do a push. You will do git push. You can see what were logged, what were the commits that happened using git log. Then you have the git fetch, which will fetch the latest commits from the repository, but it will not apply them. That's the difference between git pull versus git fetch. The next we saw git stash. Now git stash is used for saving our work. So we will run the command git stash push -m with message to save your work. To apply them back, you will write git stash pop, then followed by stash at the rate index number. The next we learned was git checkout. What git checkout does is it helps us switch the branches. Then we saw git rm, which is to remove the staged file, okay, which is nothing but, let's say you added whatever files you added here in git add, you can remove them using git rm. But remember to pass the parameter ---- cached. Alright, the next one that we saw was git merge, right? So these are the three steps you will follow. Be in the branch you want to merge, then run in that particular branch, run the command and type git merge followed by the branch name that you want to merge. Okay, so 14, what else are we missing? Let's see: git log, git merge, git branch, git checkout, git remove, git commit, git push, git add, fetch, pull, status, clone, and init. Okay, I think I added these two here, but there are other commands like you can do a git rebase, etc. That you can run, but again you will not need them up to date. If you run git pull, that should be fine, but just know that there is one more command called git rebase. It will rebase it with a particular branch for changes. Okay, these are not the only commands that are available in git. There are other commands, but I think these top 15, if you practice what I just showed you, it should give you enough confidence to start working on any git repository with your teams. For git merge, do let me know in the comment section if you want me to create a dedicated episode with replicating some of the use cases, showing you conflicts, how to resolve them, etc. I'll be more than happy. If you like my work, please do like the video, share it, subscribe with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. I really love you. Thank you so much for supporting me and this channel. I hope this is helpful to you. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. Thank you. Take care. Happy learning.